Welcome back to the channel, and let's continue with building our balance sheet. Okay, so as a reminder, this is what we are building, this balance sheet here. And then in the previous video, what we did is that we completed all of our HTML, okay, and we started with the styling. So let's continue with the styling in this video. All right, so in the previous video, we wrote this selector here, which means that we want our browser to look for span element that has a class attribute whose value includes this SR only here. Okay, so what we want to do is want to use the CSS clip property, and it is used to define the visible portions of an element. So want to set the span class SR only selector that we have here, this one. Okay, want it to have a clip property. So let's add a clip property, and want it to give it a value rect. We'll say 1 pixel, 1 pixel, 1 pixel, and another 1 pixel. All right, so the clip path property determines the shape the clip property should take. Set the clip path property to the value of insert 50%, forming the clip path into a rectangle within the element. Okay, so say clip path insert 50%. Okay, so as you can see, when I add a clip path, you see these guys, all of them are deleted from the page. Do you see that? Let me add it back. All right, so let's continue. Okay, now you need to size these elements down. Give your span selector that we have here a width and height property set to 1 pixels. So I will say width property set to 1 pixels, height property set to 1 pixels. Okay, next up, to prevent the text content from overflowing, give your span selector an overflow property set to hidden. So we say overflow, and we say hidden, and we'll say white space, a white space property, and we'll set it to no wrap. Okay, so basically what we are just doing is that we want to hide those texts, okay, but they are still available behind the scenes, so screen readers will be able to read them. All right. No wrap, there's no hyphen. Okay, finally, you need to take these hidden elements out of the document flow. Give the span class SR only selector a position property set to absolute. Okay, so position, we set it to absolute. Let's give it a padding property. Let's set that to 0, and a margin property, let's set to -1 pixels. 1 pixel. What is happening? 1 pixels. All right, this will ensure that not only are they no longer visible, but they are not even within the page view. Okay, so All right, time to style the table headings. Create an H1 selector, H1. Give it a max width. Max width property, set it to 37.25 rem. A margin property, set it to 0 for top and down, and then auto for left and right. So 0 auto. And a padding property. Okay, so if it's 2, the same thing as margin. The first one, 1.5 rem, will be for margin top and padding bottom. The second one, which is 1.25 rem, will be for padding left and padding right. Okay, all right, then let's move on. Step 36. Target your flex container with an h1.flex selector. So remember, we had this container with flex, this span right here. We gave it a class of flex. So that's what we are targeting now. Okay, so we say h1, and we want the flex class that's inside the h1, like I showed you. And then we want to give it a display property. Let's set it to flex to enable the flex layout. And then we set the flex direction. We set the property to column reverse. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, so instead of these two being on the same row, it's now displaying them in a column, and it has been reversed. So even though in our HTML, as you can see in our HTML, ASME widget corps come first before balance sheet, but since we are using a flex direction of column reverse, balance sheet is now coming first, and then ASME widget corp is coming last. Okay, let's continue. This will display the nested element from bottom to down, as we've already seen. Finally, set the gap property to 1 rem. So I'm going to say gap, and I'll just say 1 rem. Okay. So next up, we want to look at the first of type pseudo selector. Now this pseudo selector is used to target the first element that matches the selector. Okay, so we want to create an h1, and then we'll use h1 space dot flex. Okay, and then we'll bring our colon. We'll say first hyphen of hyphen type. So first of type, like so. Okay, so what this means is that it selects the first element that matches this. So in this case, the first element with the class of flex inside h1. Okay, so create an h1.flex first of type selector to target the first span element in your flex container. Remember that your span elements are reversed visually, so this will appear to be the second element on the page. Okay, so give your new selector a font size property of 0.7 rem. So I'll say font size 0.7 rem. Okay, to make it look like a subheading. Let's see. Yeah, something is wrong somewhere. So you should have an h1.flex. Oh, okay. So I forgot the span. So it should be h1.flex span. Great. So let me explain it. So as you can see, we have our H1 here, okay? And inside our H1, we have a span with a class of flex, okay? Now, so this H1. So we write H1, we leave a space, then write dot flex, okay? And then inside the dot flex, we also have some span elements, okay? So we leave a space and then write dot span. But then there are two spans here. So for us to select the first one, we use the first of type. So what this will do is we'll come in here, see our H1, go inside the H1, see a span with a class of flex, and then go inside that span and see two spans, but we'll only select the first one because we are using the first of type pseudo selector. Okay, I hope that makes it clear to you. All right, so as you can see, it was applied to the first one, which is ASME widget cop. Let's move on. Oh, what's wrong? Your H1 flex span type selector should have a font size property set to 0.7 em, not rem, 0.7 em. Okay. Then we also have last of type. So we have first of type and then last of type, which is the opposite of first of type. So you're going to select the last element that matches whatever selector you give it. So in this case, you say h1 space dot flex space span. We bring our colon and then last of type. Okay, so we want to give it a font size property and want to set it to 1.2 rem. Sorry, not rem, em. Okay. All right, next up, you wrapped your table in a section element. Now you can style that element to give your table a border. Okay, so create a section selector. So we say section. Now in case you've forgotten, this is what is referring to this section. So all of our table is inside the section element. As you can see, this is the closing section element. So that's what we are styling now. Okay. All right, so section, we want to give it a max width set to 40 rem, and for responsive design. Okay, so we also want to set the margin property. Let's do margin 0 auto. This will center it. Let's see if it's centered. Okay, as you can see, it is centered. All right, now we want to set the border property. We'll do 2 pixels, which is for the size, solid, which is for the style, and then the color is going to be this right here. I'm just going to copy it. Okay, boom. As you can see, we have our border around our section. Okay, let's go on. Now next up, for step 40, the last part of your table heading is years. Okay, let's go to our so we have the years here. Let's see. Is your years. Create a years selector. So say years and enable flexbox. So I'll say display, set it to flex. Justify the content to the end of your flex direction. Okay, so I'll say justify content and we'll say flex end. Okay, So as you can see, this, let me take it off for you to see the difference. Okay, so initially it's here. When I do flex end, it sends you to the end of our flex direction. So to the end of the page. The default flex direction is it's row. So you send it to the end of the row. Okay. We also want to make the element sticky, so fix it to the top of its container with the top property set to 0. Okay, that should do the magic. Right, your year selector should have a position property set to sticky. Okay, so position sticky. All right, yeah, so that's it. Let's end here for this video and then continue in the next one. So see you in the next video.